So how have you joined a cult? I would have more respect. He has deliberately tried to mislead the public by knowing what's going to go viral. Stephen Bartlett's job is to do that. His job is to educate, and he is not. He is putting himself and his book sales before the job he is there to do.
But there's certainly hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of results of people that have used calorie counting as the method to create a calorie deficit.
Yes, long-term calorie counting doesn't work. First off, who counts calories long-term? The odd committed crazy bodybuilder and no one else. So you're only ever going to get either small sample sizes or short-term sample sizes. It doesn't mean that calorie counting doesn't work. It just means people are bad at the tool. And this, I think, is the argument that needs to get out more from people who understand it. Because it's like, that blows anyone that says this shit out of the water immediately. How the fuck do you know if a mouse is anxious? Just quickly before we get into the full show, for any of you who's watched this podcast before, you will know that I am super passionate about this podcast and getting on the most interesting guests to help you get better results with your fat loss, your business, your life, and your coaching skills. But at the moment, 85% of you who watch this channel aren't subscribed to the channel. The bigger the channel gets, the better the guests get, the more high production value the show gets, as well as the clips get. So if you're watching this, please, can you click subscribe, like, comment, improve interaction so YouTube know we are a channel to be reckoned with. And then we can take over, and then I'm coming for you, Joe Rogan. So for the people who listen to the show regularly just on audio, and don't see the thumbnails that I maybe put up on Instagram or see the thumbnails that I go and put up on YouTube. What I was talking about with Robb off air is that we split tested last week's 2022 podcast thumbnail. And I sent both to Robb, and he decided to be a big girl's blouse and opt for the tamer one. And I decided to half ignore him and decide to put the one of him, Penny Fam, is that the...
No, that was Dove Stones in the Peak District, one of the districts, somewhere up north.
Robb climbing a mountain, having achieved himself, looking like good, like he's accomplished a goal in 2022, and we got a certain amount of downloads on the podcast.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the clothed one was Penny Fan. Sorry, clothed one was Penny Fan.
Penny Fan. So now we put one of Robb on top of a mountain posing naked, and it got double the views on YouTube. So what we have decided to do, by the way, if you want to see this year a Robb calendar that we're going to get made, and it'll be on purchase for everyone on the podcast. If you want this, share this podcast to Instagram or whatever platform you are using. Tag me, tag Robb, and saying I want a calendar. And if there's enough of you, we'll make a Robb calendar. He'll have to take some photographs, but we'll make that calendar.
Fuck it, I might just do it anyway, whether someone requests it or not. All for the merch stall. And you can get a discount. You can use my referral code, Simon's referral code. Get your 20% off.
Should we try and do a self-made podcast calendar? It's like me, you, Steve. We'll try and get Pat Davidson to be like October. I think Mark Cole's in January. Yeah. Nick Daniels definitely a November boy. I think we'll just get them all. Every guest has got to do a conveniently placed object photo shoot. So, obviously, on the topic of you posing naked on top of a mountain, you're probably going to be doing that in front of a burning effigy soon, because last week you mentioned that you are joining a cult, or you've joined a cult. And before we go on to our main topic of the day, which will be the Diary of a CEO episode with Tim Spector and our thoughts on calories don't matter, I can't continue in this episode without hearing about this cult. So how have you joined a cult?
So, as you know, I'm very, very interested in the weird, wonderful people that are out there and the things they believe. And I'm also interested in how we came to be as not just a civilization, but a species, and does our consciousness extend further out into the cosmos? We could go on for weeks talking about the weird rabbit holes I go down. But I do kind of want to understand where our decision-making capacity comes from beyond mere survival. And I read a lot of religious texts. I read a lot of ancient Greek texts, a lot of Stoicism. I read everything to help me try and understand this, to help me try and formulate what's going on. And it just so happened that I heard about this. I don't know what you would call it. I honestly don't know what you call it. But it's called human design. I'd never heard of it before. And there's two coaches I respect very, very much that were talking about it on their own podcast. And they had an expert on. And I was listening to it, and something just kind of hit. I'm like, I get that urge to go, I need to go see what this is all about. And they weren't necessarily pushing it as truth. They were just talking about it. So I went on Human Design website, where the first thing you have to do is get a reading. And the reading is based on your, maybe not your name, but your date, time of birth and location. But time being very, very, very specific. Apparently, if you don't know the time of your birth, the reading's not that accurate, apparently. And so once you get, I'm going to share the screen now. This is where it could all go wrong. Once you get your reading, which you'll see in a second, so for those listening, I would definitely go check this out on the YouTube, so you can see the screen. Let me know when you can see.
It's loading up now. So, Ben, this is great audio content. The fact that we're just getting currently a buffering screen. Here we go. So we've got chart properties. We've got, for people who are audio, I'm going to try and explain it, and then Rob's going to understand what this is. So in the middle, we've got sort of like a weird whirly mechanism. So it's like it looks a little bit phallic at first glance, but when I look a little bit closer, it looks like a pulley system. It looks like a cable attachment. And then we've got design on the left-hand side with some numbers, and next to some stop clocks. And on the right, we've got some personality and next to some numbers. And then we've got some stuff. So we've got birthday, type, manifesting generator.
It's a good one.
Strategy, authority, definition, profile, incarnation cross. You've definitely joined a cult, mate. Not self-theme, digestion, your strongest sense. Oh God, it says outer vision. I thought you said queer vision. I thought that makes sense. Environment.
Oh God. Well, yeah. That's not wholly inaccurate, really. But
nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah. So when I first got this done, I looked at that and went, I don't know what any of that means. That's a load of bollocks. Fuck it, and forgot about it. I had that done in like May last year when they first spoke about it, and I forgot about it, and then I never thought about it since. And then they did another podcast round about end of November with this guy on again. I was like, just listen to what that was about again. And it hit home even more, some of the things they were saying on there. So I was like, I've got to do it again. Did the reading again. So exactly the same stuff came up. And I was like, right, I want to learn more about this, because all I can see on that left-hand side, at first, I thought it was like a spaceship. Like, that's what it was showing me. But it's not. Those are the different chakras. So the human design is based on a lot of different things. Little bit of astrology
Bring the screen a bit bigger, Rob, because you can see us in the background and the internet history, which I don't know if the YouTube videos want to see. It might get us well, not demonetized, but no chance of monetization. We want to expand it out a bit. There we
go. So yeah, so it's all based on the chakras, right? So you've got your head, your throat, heart, root, sacrum, etc. And if it's white, then it's known as open or undefined, and if it's red, then it's known as defined, closed. And so your areas of your body, your chakras that are open and undefined, are ones where your decision-making capacity is heavily influenced from the outside world. So if you've got an open head, chances are you're going to form a lot of your beliefs, your opinions, and your emotions are going to be affected by external events, which makes sense. If you've got a defined center, for me, being this manifesting generator apparently is a sacral authority, or the solar plexus. So your sacrum is, well, it's basically your gut, right? Your sacral root is like pretty much where it goes. So this is where pretty much.
I was about to say, like, your sacrum was the bone where your pelvis attaches. So are you saying you make most of your decisions through your ass?
So that wouldn't be too inaccurate either, really, based on my life. But remember, it's the chakras. It's not the actual physical body part. So obviously, sacral beings have to listen to their gut because it's defined. So it means it's good at, it has a strong decision making capacity for you. And so I've not only got this defined sacral root, I've got a defined solar plexus, which is an emotional authority. So according to my chart, I need to listen to my gut and make decisions based on there, and I need to listen to my solar plexus and base my decisions on how something makes me feel. If something makes me feel bad, do not say yes to it. Do not do it. Do not continue with it. And if I look back through several areas through my life, I go, well, that's the case where I didn't listen, and look what the fuck happened there. And the open areas, obviously, like I say, very, very open to external events and external opinions help inform your decision making. So if you listen to the guy who started this, who is unfortunately, since deceased, he doesn't call it a religion. He doesn't really necessarily call it a way of living, but it's a decision making tool for happiness and living according to your design. So if you were to look at several things on here, it says so this manifesting generator type that I am means I'm the type of person that needs to do things and work, and I've got the energy to work, and I've got the ability to accomplish things through work. Whereas there's manifestors, there's generators, I'm halfway between two, there's reflectors, and there's another one I forget because I'm only reading about my stuff. And apparently manifesting generators are meant to respond to things. We're not meant to create our own opportunities too much. We're meant to respond to things happening to us. And when we do respond the right way by listening to our gut, apparently this is where everything goes right for us. Mm-hmm. And if we don't do that, if we don't respond and we don't listen to our gut, then if you look further down here where it says not self theme, my not self theme is frustration, which is 100% true. Other people's not self is anger, there's jealousy, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
I did a couple of therapy sessions last year, and he talks about the emotion of the brain, that there's sadness, there's ruminating, there's anger, there's frustration, all these things. There's these things where these routes that the brain goes down. I suppose this seems like the sort of version of that, like it's built off that.
It's like I say, this is taken from, well, the origin story of how this geezer learned it is a bit, but it's taken from, there's bits of astrology in there, there's bits of the I Ching in there, there's a lot going on, but there's certain bits where I go through it, and yeah, I know cold reading is a real thing, and this is how astrologists get you, but there's bits in there where I read it and I go, that's 100%, like that's scarily accurate to my environment. So one of these things, for example, digestion. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean the type of food I'm meant to eat or anything like that, or how my digestion's affected. But you'll see here it says sounds and music and high sound. So when I looked up what this means, it means I'm my best, my happiest, and my digestion's better when I'm in an environment where there is sound and where there is life and where there is music as well, especially when I'm eating. And it said, for example, when you're eating, you'll do better eating in a high sound environment, not sat at home alone in silence, like music on, podcasts on, or restaurants. I'm like, that's, again, even though I'm not necessarily a people person, I'm certainly not a loud, horrific environment type person. When I eat out at restaurants, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's rare that I have a bad experience, because even if people are being dicks, the people watching, I come away with stories. I come away with, that was amazing. Look, that person was doing fucking hilarious. Or if I'm on my own, if I'm eating on my own, earphones are in, podcasts on, or music is on. If I'm just going for a walk, earphones are in, podcasts on, music on. But there are times, obviously, I can do with silence, and I need the silence. But in terms of trying to think of something or do work or figure something out or eat, I've automatically put myself in that environment, and I know other people haven't. But you'll look at some things on there that make no sense. Profile 3-5, the Great Life Experimenter. What does that mean? Incarnation Cross. What the fuck does that mean? It's deep, right? It's deep. And the deeper I go into it, the more I hit paywalls, or the more I hit people turning the message into their own thing. So if I want to learn a little bit more from human design, I might have to pay 20 quid for a course. I might have to pay several hundred quid for a course. And then on top of that, there's another course. And then for me, that's little bits of Scientology creeping in there.
That's the compound next, right?
That's pretty much like a multi-level marketing religion. So for those who don't know, Scientology is not just a weird cult-like religion. It's you're paying to learn the next level and the next level and the next level. The famous author William S. Burroughs very, very early on kind of figured it out, what the religion was all about. Once he got to a certain level that they said he was going to achieve happiness and enlightenment and all this stuff, got to this level, and it would have been L. Ron Hubbard at the time was like, okay, you're here, but to learn the real secrets, it's like another 50 grand. He's like, see ya, bye.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is nowhere near that bad in this case, but I'll go, right, okay, well, I can't justify $700 on this course to learn about this part of my personality. Let's see who's on YouTube maybe talking about it. And you find some people on YouTube and you go on their website and they're doing the exact same thing. They're drawing you in, but they're putting it all behind this big paywall where they've almost kind of twisted it to be a little bit too self-helpy and a little bit too woo-woo as well. And then it starts hitting me like, man, how many different areas of life do it? Like fitness industry does this a little bit as well. But how could you ever really learn from these people without putting up a fuck ton of money first? And if you haven't got that money, how do you ever learn? You won't learn. It's like the access just ain't there for you. And the free bits that some of these people are giving away are twisted to their own agenda, their own ideology, which is a million miles away from the original message this geezer who came up with this stuff was pushing out there. It's frustrating that I can't read more about it without forking out a ton of cash, unless I dig into some, private forums and Google Drives, which I've done. But man, it goes so much fucking deeper than what I've learned so far. And it all comes down to the reason we have this design is to facilitate, paraphrasing, to facilitate the next species, the next evolution of our species.
This is where it gets culty for me.
This is where it gets culty, right? So they're going to be called raves, or they are the raves. And this is what the design is all about. We, in our current capacity, are here to facilitate the next evolution of our species into these rave beings who will...
Hold on. You're saying that the purpose of our entire species is to help ravers. Everyone's girding. Everyone's
living life. Everyone's happy. Everyone's moving. Everyone's ecstatically dancing. Everyone's having a whale of a time. And there's something to do with. There has to be a date. Something to do with 2027. 2027, things are going to change. So
what
everyone
happens at 2027? What is happening in 2027? How do we become ravers?
Whether that's our evolution or whether that's our visitation from, or whether that's just the next round of babies are going to start being ravers. I don't know.
How are the raves different from us?
Let me do a quick little Google for you. Because like I say, this is where then, okay, if I want to learn about these raves, and I don't yet, I just want to learn about what this stuff says about me.
Let's bring the screenshot off so people aren't seeing the matrix.
Yeah. Stop share.
Yeah.
Here we go. So this will be good. So the rave. There is a big difference between the. Oh God, no! This is too deep. This is too deep for me. This is crazy. The rave is here to be part of what is a shared consciousness, a kind of cognitive process that is the completion of our evolutionary track. Oh, what that means. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm too deep into. The rave is only going to have about 1,300 years. It's going to be a small population to begin with. It just seems to talk about, it's just an excerpt from a semester that if I pay for is going to be hundreds. So it just seems like these ravers are going to have a shared consciousness. And where we are on the spectrum of evolution, design, whatever the hell it is, where we're the ones that are meant to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work. And then we abandon the things that don't work, and the emotions and the habits and behaviors that don't serve us, which I like the sound of that help facilitate the evolution of the next round. And then they can move forward, not having to worry about the things that don't work because they know they don't work. But this shared conscious thing, I don't know if that's going to be what is that going to be, a physiological thing, or what is that going to be an area of, who knows?
Do you think there's them at the start? Like you were saying, like, I know this is how like astronomy and palm readers and all these things kind of get you, but do you think like as when people go into the self-development world, they start to realize, in a way, how little impact they have with their own decision making? You know, I heard the expression of like you're riding an elephant. Like while you can try and help steer this elephant, ultimately if that elephant wants to flip out, you're just in the mercy of the elephant, right?
Yeah.
So the more you look at this, is everyone likes to think when they start looking at stuff like this that they are unique and they're special and that they have total autonomy over the decision making. Is a lot of this though like you go, oh, that's scarily accurate? Is it down to the fact that everybody gets frustration as a response to not having something that feels with them? Everyone has a gut feeling. Anyone that doesn't follow their gut feeling will find a link of why that has caused them frustration for not following the gut feeling. Like we can put those paths together. Like every time I follow my gut feeling, I could, for the same thing, could tell you why that's worked and why that hasn't worked based on the narrative I want to look at that lens through. So do you think that everyone's going to get a similar result to you? And in turn, everyone's going to think, man, that's super accurate.
Well, that's the thing, right? There's interviews and stories of people that at first have kind of argued their reading, gone, no, that's not correct, that's not right. And then later down the line gone, oh, hang on, apparently. But, you know, people say weird things because everyone loves to be, exactly as you put it, everyone loves to feel like they're unique. And everyone loves to feel like the thing is right for them because then they found purpose and meaning. But there's
and
also
people like to fill in a blank as well, right? It's the reason why conspiracy theories, I know we believe a lot of them, but a lot of conspiracy theories are there because let's use 9/11 for example. Put aside what you're feeling about 9/11, whether it was an inside job or whether it was a terrorist attack. What we know is, as human beings right now, and obviously some people know more than others, but bomb hits plane. We don't know why that happens. Bomb hit plane. Plane hits building. We don't know why that happens. And our brains like certainty. So we will find a solution as to why that happened to make sense in our heads. So people have got a reading and maybe argued it. Maybe later down the line they don't like the uncertainty or find a point from that plan from A to B.
And this also, you also got to look into people don't want to be the one who's not involved. How many alien abduction or UFO sighting cases are from people that not necessarily sitting and consciously thinking this, but don't want to be the person that hasn't seen a UFO? How many people, like, there'll be a large percentage, it'll be a big number. So when things like this come along and it creates a sense of connection to self and a sense of connection to something higher than yourself, and you can learn a little bit more about yourself, cool. But there's also, again, there's the fill in the blanks, right? This must be what it's all about. I have to follow this, like, doctrine. Whereas for me, and it's the same with all the religious texts I read, with every speaker I go see, with everyone I listen to, especially with this as well. I read about it, I learn about it, and then I go, cool, but so what? What does this actually mean for me? I'm not suddenly going to drop everything and go, right, I have to follow every single thing this thing says. But there's things I can take away from it. Maybe I should listen to my gut a little bit more. Maybe there are areas where my thoughts and my beliefs are being dictated by external events. A couple of years ago, or a few years ago, I knew that to be the case, certainly, and I've done things to fix that. Yes, there's. I have got the energy to work. Of course, I've got the energy to work. And when things aren't working, there is a sense of frustration there. Whereas others I know will almost find a sense of comfort from just doing the same thing over and over again and not progressing. But again, it's okay. So this is cool. What am I going to take from it? What does it actually mean for me? Well, I've still got to work. Still got to take trash out. Still got to get 8 hours sleep a night. Still got to look at my food. Still got to move, exercise. Still got to, like, nothing else. Nothing changes really. It's not going to suddenly revolutionize my life, but at the very least, it might make me a little bit more aware of my decision-making process. But again, it's so easy for people. I don't want to say lower down the ladder, but I'm just going to use that because it works as a phrase. But people lower down the ladder on that self-development route will just cling on to, this must be the top of the ladder. Got it. So I'm going to read everything. I'm going to pay for everything. I'm going to use this as a religion, and it's going to work for me. We saw this with the law of attraction. How that became a multi-billion-dollar industry from people not showing how the law of attraction worked, but from people selling programs and books on the law of attraction. Like it became the biggest con industry so fast, and people are still doing it now. People are still doing it now. The bird who wrote The Secret has wrote several books since, which I'm sure aren't saying anything new. But yes, there's merit in there. You can't get what you want without knowing what you want. That's essentially it. You can't ask for it and it will come. You can't get what you want without knowing what you want. But you then have to put yourself in a position to receive that, and that doesn't mean passively receive. You have to putting yourself in a position to receive means fucking working for it, so you deserve it. But people won't take that. They'll see the easy route and just go, "Oh, you mean I just have to put a vision board on my wall of the house in the Bahamas I want, and I'm going to get it? Amazing! I'm at the top of the ladder, so I'm going to do that." And then
I think there's more. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, a year down the line when it ain't working, when it hasn't worked, but they won't abandon that belief, or they'll abandon that belief and look for the next thing, or they'll buy the next level of the course. Because some guru out there will go, "Do you have a vision board on your wall and it's still not manifested? Here's why." And you're in their course. Why don't I do that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the fear of missing out thing, because it's always like you mentioned the example of someone not wanting to be the person that doesn't see a UFO, but also you've got probably the much more common reality, and this trends onto other areas where this sort of thing happens, of people that feel that have grown up in their life not being listened to or heard as much as they feel they need to, which makes that people using that UFO example. Someone sees a UFO because that is noteworthy enough, interesting, out of the norm. It gets traction. It gets people to listen to them. And if they then fire that out to enough people, there is going to be people in that space that resonate with that message that's against the norm. So, like, for example, in that sense of like reasons why fringe dieting methodologies that are sexy tend to do well despite being some points inaccurate. And also the reason, we talked about Darren Brown before we came on the show because he's just done a Diver CEO episode. There's a great thing that he did about this woman got a random anonymous email. Didn't know it's from Darren, where he says, "Put money on this horse." And she went, put money on this horse, and she won. And then the next one did another horse, and she put more money on, and it won. The next one did again, and more money, and it won, and it won, and it won, and it won, and it won. So she kept putting money on this horse, and he was like, "How on earth did Darren do it?" And he explained this is essentially like what these multi-level marketing schemes do. He sent that email out to about 10,000 people. And some people put the money on, and some people ignored the email, it went into junk. Yeah. Of those people who did that, a couple more people, half of those people won. From that, they did the second email. The second email, again, it filtered down so they have this one or two people that won every single time just by probability. Yeah. Cool. In the same way that if we feel these people now that are more disconnected, I think, than the world than ever, we've spoken about like men feeling disconnected in the world, but I think there's women having a hard time as well. There's anxiety rates going up through the roof in both genders now, whether it's a pandemic or various other factors. If we're in this situation now where everyone's feeling more anxious, more people are going to be looking for this release, looking for this exit strategy, looking for this answer to their problems. And I've spoken to a number of people on the show recently, from Akash last night to various other people, that do feel that their people are looking for an easy route or looking for the answer more than ever. And I do think that's what gets worrying in topics where the what looks like the easy way out, like the thing that's failed you before, don't worry, that was rubbish anyway. This is the way. It's going to become more frequent because I don't know, we've discussed it on this show. Personal training clients have changed, that less people are willing to go out of their comfort zone and work, whether it's because there's more information coming on and we're just burnt out, we can't add anything, or everything's too comfortable. I do think people are more susceptible to bullshit than ever before. Yeah, massively so. Everyone's filter is fucked. It really needs a clean. It really does. Whether that's through heavy use of psychedelics or defluoridization, I don't know. But yeah, everyone's filter's a little bit screwed because there's so much. We weren't built to deal with this. We weren't. It's so easy to forget where we came from. We walked out of trees, and we just so happened to figure out how to create fire. And we were eating whatever the fuck was on the floor, and then we went on to hunt whatever, and that took such a long time.
where we've still got those decision-making capacities and those emotional filters in our body. That's why, the fight or flight reaction was dealt with. We're running away from a predator or a warring tribe, or we're about to fight them. Not so-and-so said the wrong words that I don't like on TikTok. But it's the same reaction in your body. It's the same neuron created in your brain that's just going to stay there until you rewire it. So yeah, people are struggling more than that, and we know that. There was a report from the World Health Organization just the other day that since pandemic, 25% increase worldwide in depression and anxiety. Because again, it wasn't an environment we were ever meant to be put in. Never meant to be put in it. But they did it for their reasons. We're not going to get too conspiratorial on that. They did it for their reasons. The long-lasting effects, some people could see this happening, and they warned us about it. But again, they can warn us, but when something was almost written into law, what can you do? And people, again, want the easy route. And people want the route where you go, what, you mean I don't have to go to work? Oh, fuck yes, I don't have to go away. Hell yeah, of course we're going to start more lockdowns. Let's do it. And then divisions created. Suddenly we've got pro-lockdown, anti-lockdown. Then we've got pro-vax, anti-vax. And then anti-vax splits into the 5G lot and all sorts of stuff. And the media can stir that up even more.
Well, expand on that, right? Like, I think now, we said this the other day. Well, we said this last week, didn't we? About like there's so much aggression and discussion. There is the men versus women rather than let's work together. And I think that brings us on to nicely the latest thing now that the fitness industry has now come back around after I think a bit of a gap. I think we haven't had a fitness industry war, if pro versus anti, in a long time. We haven't had like the pro fat, the low carb movement, and then all of a sudden in walks fucking Tim Spector, and he goes on Diver CEO, and with all due respect to Stephen Bartlett, right? He is a incredibly inspiring human being, one of the best marketers in the world, one of the most generally honest human beings in the world. And at no point am I saying that Stephen Bartlett should be an expert on everything. Of course he shouldn't. But he isn't an expert on nutrition, self-professed, right? And the problem there is that he can't. I'm not saying that Tim Spector shouldn't have a voice, because I'll be a hypocrite. Like we were saying that everyone should be able to speak their mind, and there's less is this, right?
Yeah.
But the problem here is Stephen Bartlett doesn't know enough to challenge the perspectives.
Exactly.
What did you think of that interview?
So at first, before I even knew the interview, because we don't need to get into it, but I don't watch many Stephen Bartlett interviews. So I didn't know this guy was going on there. I'd recognised the name. I think I forget the name of the book. I haven't read the book, but there was a book that went heavily on rotation years ago. One of the ones that he wrote. So I knew the name, didn't know too much about him, and instantly, as soon as within the first 10 seconds, my initial thought was, "This is clever marketing. This is genius. And yeah, it already gone viral by that point."
Food for Life: The New Science of Eating Well is his main book. He's also done Why Almost Everything We've Been Told About Food Is Wrong, and The Diet Myth is his main ones.
Yeah, that's the one, Diet Myth. So instant, as soon as he's saying these words, I'm going, here we go. It's back. The division's back, because now it's going to be calorie counting is pointless. And straight away, news articles all over the place as well. It wasn't just the clip went viral. They're reporting on his interview as if it is news. It's weird that reporting on a podcast interview. So all the newspapers straight away, headline, calorie counting is pointless and exercise won't work for weight loss. And you're like, that's it. The headline culture will just take that as gospel now, because that's what people do. And fitness industry can argue that and go, well, that's because people are dumb. They shouldn't do that. Fitness industry does it just as much. And the reason for this is because now we've got half the fitness industry pushing their anti-calorie counting thing again. Again, genius marketing from Stephen Bartlett. The name's escaped me now. From Stephen Bartlett and his team, because that's the job of his podcast, is to get viewers, really. And
that's what he knows about. He is a marketer.
And there you go. Like, there's a reason that podcast's one of the biggest in the world, because he can market it and he can have good conversations and he can push people. And he's very good. A likable character for most as well. But you have to remember that it's not, Stephen Bartlett didn't sit down one day and go, what podcast can I start that's going to educate people the best about their health and nutrition and their physical goals? At no point did he sit down and do that. Just so happens to have a guest who has some, albeit fairly controversial, views of getting his point, methods of getting his point across, rather than actually having some controversial views. And what's going to happen? Things are going to go viral, and of course it went fucking viral.
The interesting thing about Tim Spector's viewpoints, because I've seen a lot of hate with this, and I've seen a lot of reaction to this online, and the problem I have with it is he hasn't said anything that's entirely wrong. He is just deliberately left blanks blank,
exactly,
and to make it look like there's a narrative. And and here's the thing: I'm not saying it's about the topic. People around the world want calories not to matter because it gives them an excuse for not pulling the finger out and doing it, because calorie counting is simple. It's not easy to do, but it's simple, right? And I don't want to make this an Andrew Tate podcast again, right? But there is an argument here that man has been slammed and has been demonized for potentially sound bites, or let's make it more specific, for having a big point that on the whole isn't terrible, but deliberately going, instead of saying, I always use the example of the men and women in sport, and Andrew Tate, rather than going, men have a bit more physical muscle mass, they're going to be stronger physically, he'll go, women are weak. And people go, how do you say that? Tim Spector did so many of these things where he talked about Diet Coke in the interview. And he goes, oh, I have a can of Diet Coke today. He goes, oh dear. Oh, and made out that it's bad, and then backtracked and said, actually, it's probably better than the sugary drink. But he wanted the soundbite. People are going to soundbite that the exercise doesn't work, and then went on to talk about why exercise is still important in somebody's life.
Exactly.
And I'm like, you are deliberate. This is my problem with Tim Spector. If he had viewpoints that are flawed, but he stood by them with integrity, I would have more respect. He has deliberately tried to mislead the public by knowing what's going to go viral. Stephen Bartlett's job's to do that. His job is to educate, and he is not. He is putting himself and his book sales before the job he is there to do. And that's when I lost respect for him.
He is, as a prime example, for anyone that's not too sure, he obviously the big quote that came from it is, there's never been any long-term studies done that calorie counting works for weight loss. Which there's multiple reasons for that, but that's such a non. I'm just going to say it because I'm not intelligent. It's such a non thing to say. That's a nothing burger in a sentence, because there are plenty of studies on the effects of calorie deficits and metabolic studies and so many things. And when one of the top 3 tips that he comes out for people to focus on instead is his big 3 is like, avoid ultra processed food. Well, of course, numbnuts, and there's nothing controversial or new or revolutionary about that. Eat 30 plants a week. Yes, of course. Doesn't mean go on a plant-based diet. It means increase your goddamn veg. You're getting some goddamn nutrition in there within these calories that you're counting. But then he goes on to talk about time-restricted feeding. Like, well, if you want to say there's no long-term studies on calorie counting working for weight loss, then show me the long-term studies that time-restricted feeding works better than any other method. Because those have been debunked a million times. Doesn't mean time-restricted feeding doesn't work. But time-restricted feeding puts you into a calorie deficit, which means the calorie deficit is going to create a fat loss effect. But the studies do not show fasting as this superior fat loss method. But it doesn't matter. The soundbite's already out there.
Exactly. And also, he went into such specifics of why he didn't think that calories mattered. Yet when it came to intermittent fasting talks, he didn't actually... They talk about 18-6, 16, so 16-8 and 12, but he doesn't ever talk about the separating in the research a 16-hour fast or an 8-hour fast compared to a 2-3 day fast. And then that, for some people go, well, why does that make a difference? That's a huge difference. A intermittent or time restricted feeding day works as a easier way to achieve a calorie deficit. Autophagy, all these digestion benefits, all these long-term anti-aging benefits. In that window, pretty much nothing. If you then decide to fast for like 2, 3, 4 days, which is hard, by the way, because I've done a 3-day fast and it sucks. Actually, that's a lie. It sucks for 24 hours, and then actually it's not too bad.
Yeah,
but,
and then you hit the ground, don't you?
Yeah, but like those are where those benefits come into play. the brain benefits, and those things weren't clarified. So you're just going, well, all these benefits of time restricted feeding, yes, but not what people are going to go away and do this podcast from. And that's now when people are going to upsell, like your cult, to buy his book.
Yeah, of course. Straight away to buy the book. Straight away. Because people will now go, oh, well, if calorie counting doesn't work, and all the PTs that I know are pushing calorie counting, then I need to know the secret, because they don't know what they're talking about. But again, it's okay, so there might not have been no long-term studies, whether that's true or not. But there's certainly hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of results of people that have used calorie counting as the method to create a calorie deficit. And that was the biggest problem I had with it. It's calorie counting doesn't work. It's not the only way to create a calorie deficit, of course not. But the calorie deficit always works. Always works. But that's not a sexy subject line.
But also, like, calorie counting. So there's a couple of things for this, because a lot of the response, and I'm not disregarding this video response, because there's some very, very good videos that Ben Carpenter has done, James Smith has done. You've done one about the calorie counting thing, and it was very good, by the way. But I think where the boat's missed is that he actually said that calories aren't important and it's all about the gut. If he'd have come out and said calorie counting doesn't work, now I may have some disagreements with that, but I would also have a little bit more of an understanding, because yes, long-term calorie counting doesn't work. First off, who counts calories long-term? The odd committed crazy bodybuilder and no one else. So you're only ever going to get either small sample sizes or short-term sample sizes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Also, yes, okay. Then he went on to talk about the discrepancies in food labels and how there's a discrepancy in calories there, and obviously restaurants and people not being able to track food at the restaurants accurately, and also talk about people's tracking hours. All these things are very valid. People track disastrously. There's a 20 to 40% discrepancy even in registered dietitians for what they think they're eating and tracking calories and what they're actually eating. If the dietitians can't do it, what hope do the rest of us have? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, food diaries and like food labels are off. Irrefutable. But the thing of this matter is, it doesn't mean that calorie counting doesn't work. It just means people are bad at the tool. Now, if that person, this is the argument. Let's take someone where you give them macros and say, just with no education, and just say, go. You're going to find out the calorie counting doesn't work. Now, if I took that same sample size and found out a meal plan that worked for them, and I told you to track that meal plan and then just track the one or two other things you swap in and out. Let's say you track 1,600 calories. That may be 1,400, that may be 2,200. It doesn't matter. What I know is I gave Rob this amount of food, and because he's not changing food that dramatically day to day, this amount of food did X to his weight. And then I adjust that. So 2,200 to 2,000 is the same as the hypothetical 16 to 14. So calorie counting works if you put structures and systems around how you do it. Is the number precise? No. So that's my problem one. My problem two is that he said calories don't matter, because it's like me saying training is rubbish. Science says that training does not build muscle mass because people train like rubbish. No. Calories do work. And the argument I haven't seen go round as much that I think because people don't understand it, and unfortunately coaches included. Hormones, gut health does not mean calories don't work. People think that calories in versus calories out means eat a bit of food, do a bit of walking. If you have a healthy thyroid output, your BMR is increased, which means the calories out comes up. If your ATP production is good, if your stress response is good, if your gut health is good, energy in is more efficient, energy out is more efficient. It doesn't mean calories don't work. It is all comes under the calorie umbrella. These two things work side by side. If you are in a health shitstorm, calories still matter, but your calorie maintenance is lower, so you have to grind harder. If your health's in a good place, you can get away with more food. Calories are still important. And this, I think, is the argument that needs to get out more from people who understand it, because it's like, that blows anyone that says this shit out of the water immediately. Because if I spoke to Tim Spector now, and I'm not saying he doesn't know more than me about the gut and some other things, he absolutely does, but he can't refute that. He can't. Which doesn't mean he's wrong, it just changes the conversation. We now can actually listen to Tim Spector talk about the good things he knows about the gut, rather than this calories versus non-calories, bollocks, pointless, meh of a debate. It's a meh burger sandwich.
Yeah. It's such a great phrase as well. But it's, and you're right. We have to educate people that the calorie counting is the tool. It's the method to create the effect that we want. It doesn't mean it's the be all and end all and that there isn't stuff going on behind the scenes. The biggest issue I had with the if it fits your macros crowd was you're just going to feed yourself a ton of junk. It's an easy excuse to fuck up your gut macrobiome and to feel like shit because you're just going, well, it's in my calorie. And eventually you figure out that pure junk, you can't work that. The calorie Tetris you're playing is just too confusing for most people to handle unless they're already lean and have got a long history of dietary success. That's the only people that it worked for. Everyone else, it was just a fucking nightmare. And thank God we don't hear as much about it anymore. But it's probably going to make a resurgence at some point. I don't know. But it's the method. It's the same as... Well, it's not exactly the same as... But if you go to the gym, and we know to build muscle, you have to progressively overload it over a specific period of time. But if I were to say, right, tracking your reps doesn't work... Okay, it kind of sounds right in a way, but doesn't. As long as there's more weight going on the bar, tracking your reps doesn't work. Okay, for some people, in a way, that's going to work because they're putting more weight on the bar and they're tracking the amount of weight they're lifting, not necessarily their total volume or the amount of reps they're doing. But then you could split it the other way as well. Tracking the amount of weight on the bar doesn't work.
Well, let's look at that exact example that you just said, right? So tracking your reps doesn't matter as long as there's more weight going in the bar. What happens when you can't lift more weight?
What happens?
Now if you want to progress, you now need to maybe look at something like reps. Okay, if you've never looked at your reps, how on earth do you know?
Yeah.
And I would also then argue, flipping that back to the calories argument. Okay, you could get very far by just improving the quality of your nutrition. Yeah. By getting in a healthy space, your maintenance calories goes up. The amount of calories you expend is more efficient. You're more energetic, which means you probably move around more and your NEAT goes up and all that sort of thing. I'm going to come back onto that point in a second. And you don't ever pay attention to calories in total or food amounts, right? And for a while, you would lose weight by energy out going up, and because your food quality's improved, you actually eat less calories because your food volume's gone up because you're eating vegetables and shit now, right? Okay, cool. So, by the way, that's still a calorie deficit. But in the same way that when the weight can't go on the bar, what about when your diet's 100% clean and you're not losing weight anymore? If calories don't matter, where on earth do you go from there?
And that's the issue we then saw with what do you fucking call it? With keto, is people are then going, okay, well, of course, if you increase the amount of high quality protein you're eating and the amount of quality fats that you're eating, your overall health is going to improve. You are probably going to lose a fair amount of weight. You're going to lose a fair amount of water as well. Like, there's nothing magic going on behind the scenes. But if you're then going, well, I can eat all the steak and eggs and butter I want, and I can put half a stick of butter into my coffee and I'm still going to lose weight. Well, a month down the line, when you're having 4,000 calories a day and you're a 63 kilo woman, why aren't you losing weight? Maybe it's my hormones, or maybe it's I'm not following the Zodiac diet. Or people look for the sexy thing when the biggest thing for me, this is why I use calorie counting with my clients. I'm going to use my mate as an example, who I took on as a client this week alone. Lost 2.3 kilos in a week. No, it's not all body fat. Of course it's not. Is it impressive? Fantastic. If he had lost 0.2 kilos, I'll be celebrating. His energy's better. His sleep's better. His mood's better. He realized through calorie counting that before he was having 4,000 calories per day. And that's why he was overweight. 4,000 calories per day. Now, I could have spoke to him about, right, let's just go for 3 meals and 2 snacks. I could have put him on fasting. I could have put him on keto. I could have done a number of things. We could have said, let's do intuitive eating. Nothing would have given him that data at all. And the risk of him still feeding himself 4,000 calories, albeit in an 8-hour time window or through healthier foods or whatever the hell, the risk of him still doing that was high because he's not got the awareness of this is the reason you're not losing weight.
Well, she doesn't have autonomy, which means how long can he stick this out? Because now he has the power to control his body weight.
Exactly. And I think calorie counting helps you build better habits and better decisions faster than any other method because of the sheer data that it gives you. It's not for everyone because not everyone gets on with data. Not everyone has that habit building process wired to track all their food. And some people just don't have that awareness. And the issue is because they're stuck in sexy headline land with matey saying doesn't work. And then PT's coming out saying it doesn't work. Even though that goes against the very essence of everything they've ever been taught, which just shows they can't think for themselves either. Open head machines, all of them. And so this poor girl that I argued with, and poor girl because people hammered her on TikTok. She was getting death threats a lot, which, maybe I question. But her straight thing came down. Her headline was, "I'm so sick of men shoving calorie deficits down women's throats." It's not the only thing that works. Then goes on to talk about her female clients that are coming to her that are in calorie deficits and aren't losing weight.
They're not.
Well, of course they're not, because there's multiple reasons behind that. But
we said earlier on, sorry to cut off there, but I want to hear that sentence. But we said earlier on that people aren't special, and we all like to think we are. I am sorry, you are not more special than physics.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying there isn't something more complicated. The reason why you're not in a calorie deficit. You are not in a calorie deficit. Now, you may have something wrong. You may have a thyroid issue. You may have something else. Which, by the way, you'd have symptoms. You'd be energetic. You'd be barely able to get out of bed to do energy. You'd be always constantly cold. All this sort of stuff, right? I doubt it, though. I doubt it. I reckon you're a secret fucking eater. Have you watched the show Secret Eaters on Channel 4?
Yeah, that was game changer. But people didn't view it as an education. People viewed it purely as entertainment without realising they were doing it themselves.
Or an attack.
Yeah. And so, I put a video out, and it did all right. I had some very constructive conversations with people based on this video. It didn't go viral, nothing like that. Oh, well, I kind of wanted it to because I thought this is a good one to jump on. But I had some rather aggressive comments as well. Oh, look, just some other guy telling me. So there shouldn't be, gender should not come into this. It should not come into this. So education then comes into it, right? And this poor bird then argued my video saying, well, for me to be in a calorie deficit, it means I have to eat 1,200 calories a day and my hormones are messed up. So my first two questions are, show me the calculation you're using that tells you to eat 1,200 calories a day, and show me the results of your hormone tests that show you're messed up. And again, completely missed both of those questions. Straight away argued about hormones. Now, yes, hormones are a factor when it comes to your overall health, shape, physique. Of course they are. Calories are a major, major factor. It doesn't mean one's happening without the other responding, okay? What you eat can dictate what your hormones do, and vice versa. What your hormones are doing can dictate what you eat. Of course, they work hand in hand. But it doesn't mean one is the sole thing that's going to work for you or not work.
It can't be, because, as you said, the two are synergistic with each other. Yeah. The analogy that I often use is, and it's a video I've got about to go up about this on my little series of response of this podcast, is about understanding the HPA axis, understanding how hormones work by using American football as an analogy. So I will try and explain this. You'll get this if you listen to American football or watch American football. If you don't, I'll try and make sense of it, because I don't really, but it's the best example for me. So you've got the coach, right? So this is your hypothalamus. This is your part of the brain. So he will put the game plans in place. He will communicate with the team. He makes sure he will send the messages out. But what he does, that coach will send that game plan to, we could use a captain in another sport, but I'm going to use the quarterback, because the reason why I use American football and other sports is that the captain is just a person that talks to the team. He doesn't actually do all the plays. The quarterback's in control of the plays, right? So he sends a message to the quarterback. So this is the pituitary. And that person then will send these messages to the various hormones in the body. That is like your wide receiver. That is like your halfback that you're going to put things to, right? So he is throwing all these things. He is throwing all these lines. Now, if the coach is working really, really, he's a brilliant coach. And this quarterback is Tom Brady. He's throwing the best balls ever. And the lines that are being ran by the halfbacks and the wide receivers are amazing. The defense is good, so nothing's getting through, right? That is like you having all your health and your hormones working perfectly, which means your metabolism is firing as it should be. Things are working when they're supposed to work. that means that you can win against a much higher level of opposition. Like, I don't need to eat as little calories to be in a calorie deficit because my maintenance is higher because everything is working for me. Now, if the coach is really poor, or the quarterback's arm's a little bit sore, or they're getting sacked a lot, doesn't change the fact that they need to score more touchdowns than the other team to win the game, but they're actually going to lose against poorer opposition because of how badly they are playing.
Right.
The rules of the game are still the same, but you are not performing at a higher level, which means you can only beat poorer opposition, as in less calories need to be consumed. Does that make sense to you? Because if it is, this video is going to be good.
Within reason. Granted that I don't know, I know as little about American football for that analogy to work, but it just shows how many pieces are at play, how many things are involved. But it's not. But they have to work together. They have to work together. It's not one thing. But again, with this culture of, well, one thing works. What's the one thing I need to do? What's the guru I need to follow? And it's not. It never is. There's no one thing for anything, really. It is a combination of different factors. All the decisions we make, we love to think that we are these conscious beings that our head is absolutely screwed on and we can say and think all the right things, when it kind of goes back to that human design thing. It's not. Not everyone has that capability. We have more beliefs, habits, decisions, and emotions affected by external events more than we realize. Even those of us who think, I like to think I've got it together and I'm a bit more of a sovereign individual than I was, and a bit more of a sovereign individual than a large number of people I know, still doesn't mean that I'm 100% putting my opinion across there. Most of my opinions will have been formulated from other people's opinions that I respect and admire, and it hits me correctly as well and works for me. So I can't say this is my idea and I believe this way and I act this way and I say this and I vote this and I vote this because of it works for me. Not the case at all. And so now these quotes, these viral quotes that go out there, just feed that population of people who are in perpetual struggle and they can't find a way forward because Stephen Bartlett even said it himself on that exact podcast. I think the guy said something to do with exercise not working, and Stephen Bartlett goes, "God, it's so confusing, isn't it?" And I'm like, look at you. You're in great shape. You're in phenomenal shape. You shouldn't be saying that sentence of "this is confusing," because now you're just feeding that into everyone else's brains. Oh yeah, it's confusing, isn't it? When it's not. It's fairly fucking simple. How do you think you got in phenomenal shape?
I think it's he got in phenomenal shape seeing the people like Dylan Cartel, who is his fitness advisor. You know, like, regardless what you think of Dylan in terms of quality of PT, quality of fitness marketing, Dylan, James are incredible, right? Put aside what you think of knowledge. They get their opinions out across well. But there's a reason why Dylan is in his new paid journal. We have the video guides that Dylan is hired to be the fitness expert. It's a calorie counting equation. And I don't think, and this is where I'm going to throw a little bit of shade Stephen's way, and I have a lot of respect for Stephen Bartlett, but I don't believe for a minute that Stephen Bartlett doesn't know that calories are the thing.
Exactly.
I don't buy that for a second. But he's dumbing himself down. And sometimes you need to do that on a podcast. I think that's fine. But dumbing himself down to get the marketing message rather than the lesson across. Yeah. But I want to go back to your thing there about the sovereign individual. And, like, I think we both, to close up your point, I think we both people oversimplify and undersimplify nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got the people like us, you don't need to make it that complicated. You being in a calorie deficit, by the way, will solve half of your hormonal issues, and you being in a caloric surplus will solve the other half. Right? For the most part. No, I'm not saying food quality doesn't matter. It absolutely does, right? But what's going to impact your thyroid more? You having the exact 30, not 29, but 30 fruit and veg a day, or eating more food so your thyroid has to upregulate and work. What's going to have an impact on your cholesterol and your lipids and all these kind of things, right? In your insulin management, right? Is it the fact that you had a Coke every now and again? Or is it the fact you got into a calorie deficit and you're not constantly bombarding that system?
Exactly.
So I think on the whole that people who say it's just calories are the only thing that matters. Like, don't worry about your food quality, it's calories. It's just if it fits your macros, bro. Are as misguided as Tim Spector going, it's just the gut, it's just your hormones. No, both. But I also think what people, and this is the problem with the This is the problem I have in a way with the evidence-based crowd. Luke Lehman, one of my biggest mentors ever, said it really well. He says, I am not evidence-based, I am evidence-informed. And I love that, because the problem with the evidence-based crowd is that evidence is done in labs, right? That means we see things based off either very flawed or cherry-picked data, but put that aside, we'll come back to that point, but also we see everything working in unison. So exercise, as you said there from one of the quotes, was exercise doesn't impact weight loss. I would agree with him. In the sense of exercise, stand down, does not burn many calories and does not impact weight loss. I'm going to come back to NEAT because I think NEAT's a very different conversation, because I don't think it burns many calories, but it does something else. But exercise on the whole, he is right. It doesn't burn many calories. But what you're forgetting to understand is exercise plays into things that help people be adherent to a diet. It affects our psychology. We both know Umar Malik, right? Umar, right? How good a personal trainer would you say Umar was?
Top tier. Top tier.
Top tier, right? Umar wasn't the I WhatsApp you 4 times a day to check your food diaries guy. Umar focused on training and gave good guidelines, but wasn't a nutrition guy. Umar got amazing results. Now, I'm not saying that the training made these clients burn calories, but what happened was he trained them so hard and so well that the clients left that session going, do you know what? I don't want to go to Burger King today. I want to go and eat something that's going to make that session worthwhile. So exercise doesn't burn calories and make your weight loss easier, but it affects your psychology. When your training's in a place, you don't want to ruin it, which makes you find it easier to stick to a diet, which makes it easier to lose weight. You saying exercise doesn't impact weight loss is going to have a lot of people now going, well, that's it, cancel my gym membership, what's the point? Which now takes away a huge tool.
Yeah. It's... Think about it. We're not perpetual dieters. We are almost the antidote to perpetual dieters. We're not constantly tracking our calories. We're not still weighing ourselves every single day outside of the idea of a photo shoot or getting lean for summer or something like that. And there are a large percentage of PTs who are stuck in that mindset, who are almost damaged, right? We could say that because they are. So we're not perpetual dieters, but we still train, right? We still train. What are the reasons we train for if we're not dieting? A whole host of reasons I go to the gym, a whole host of reasons I train with weights, a whole host of reasons I'm now adding regular cardio into my training, regardless of what my physique looks like. I'm going to have to weigh myself this year still. We're in the 12th. That's probably the longest it's been since I've weighed myself after Christmas. And I'm still not going to. Priorities are changing. My goals are changing. So I'm doing things that are relevant to my new goals. But I'm not going to stop going to the gym because I'm worried that, oh shit, if I exercise, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to burn calories. But it's targeting that level of awareness of people that don't know the next level, that it doesn't fucking matter whether exercise burns your calories or not. It doesn't fucking matter. But again, we the industry can argue this, but we the industry are not a whole that agree on the best ways to put these things out there, because there is a large percentage of the industry still pushing, put your heart rate monitor on. If your workout didn't burn 500 calories, it wasn't worth it. It didn't necessarily burn 500 calories in that workout. You might be sweating fucking buckets and your heart rate monitor might have said 500 calories. It doesn't mean you burnt 500 calories. And what does that, and again, so what? What does that information mean for you? What does that actually do for you? I think it's so relevant with what Umar has done, especially. And yes, it's not going to work for everyone, but it is so relevant. The times where my activity is high and my training session was amazing, and maybe I got something extra in, those are the days that I am, funnily enough, most adherent. Days where I'm sitting down like a slob and not moving and making excuses to go outside, to not walk in the rain, and maybe things are a little bit stressful because I've not got my routine on because I haven't gone to the gym, are the days I'm reaching for junk, absolute junk. I might say to myself, it's pissing down with rain, I can't be asked to go for my 10,000 steps. Tesco's is around the corner. Still walking outside in that rain to go get something junky because I feel like shit because I'm out of my routine and I haven't hit the gym. And that's the cycle people are stuck in anyway.
It's the reason why I quite like, if people are willing to do extra cardio outside of training, I like them to do cardio every single rest day. And the reason why I do that, it's not because it's going to burn tons of extra calories. It's that if you do something positive for your health every single day, you're less likely to eat junk. When you're doing a day sitting on the sofa watching Netflix, you're more likely to grab the bag of Doritos than the day where you've got up in the morning to a hike or a run or a weight training session. And like, the reason why Tim Spector saying that calorie counting don't work is also the reason why activity is important. And this is why I said I would come back to the NEAT thing. Trainers, stop saying NEAT is steps. It isn't, right? Like, I know this isn't an important thing, but please, like, when people go, "Hey, you got your NEAT? That's your steps." No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Non-exercise activity thermogenesis is my hand gestures right now. It's fidgeting. It's the amount of times I tap my foot. It's the times I look around. It's the speed of my voice. Right, the only time where I come to a normal level of speed in Simon Dutton's voice is when I'm dieting. So if you ever realise I'm not like sounding like I'm at 1.5 speed, it's because I've started dieting. So, and these things are subconscious. So I can't. I'm never going to tell if you Rob, if you were my client and I'm never going to say, Rob, your goal this week is to fidget 20% more. Not realistic, but. The reason why calorie counting, one of the arguments he made of calorie counting not working is because your metabolic rate will down-regulate, right, over time. Now, before people go, this is a fucking hormone thing. No, this is like, over time, your body will try and slow you down. There is less thermic effect of food will go down. Even no matter what you do with your protein, thermic effect of food will go down. It just offsets it a little bit because you have less food. So there's less thermic effects of food. So NEAT will go down. And all you're doing with steps is offsetting the NEAT that goes down. So activity is important to just make sure at very least you're on an even keel of output. And there's a reason why I quite like calories to be not in time, but either calorie targets or distance targets. Not because I think the calories burned on a treadmill is accurate, but because if week 1 it takes you 15 minutes to do 300 calories on a treadmill, and week 6 it takes you 25 minutes, you're still doing the same level of output on the treadmill. So things stay consistent. And that's my argument. Like with that, the exercise doesn't matter. It doesn't take into account all the things in life that are at play by what somebody exercises. It's a soundbite for soundbite's sake. Yeah,
totally. I had a point, but I've forgotten it now because that was more important to say anyway. But yeah. So
I'll get your take on this then. If you lost your point, but I'll get your take on this. So it's going because this follows on from the scientific crowd. So I really want to get you gut health and anxiety. The argument I would say first off, and this potentially ruins all of Tim Spector's points in this, is that we still know very little about the gut. That does not make him wrong. It just means that he cannot put absolutes on everything that he was putting absolutes on.
Yeah.
But one of the studies that stuck in my head, and I want to see if you can help me with this because it's playing on my brain and I can't work it out. That they did this thing where they did a fecal transplant. So they took the poo from mice and put it into other mice. So you took the poo from an anxious mouse and they put it into a non-anxious mouse, and that mouse became anxious. How the fuck do you know if a mouse is anxious?
I guess I'm gonna do the serious answer and maybe a non-serious answer. But then again, I don't know. Are they going by heart rate? Are they going by?
So are they going in to say Susie doesn't like the way you walk, and everyone's like,
"This is how you make the mouse anxious."
James, your brother's sick.
Do a mouse 9/11 right in front of it.
See what happens. The scientists leave the room. They come back, and one of the mice is lying on a chaise lounge with another one writing down notes.
Show me where he touched you. But I think the serious answer. I'm going to assume I'm not an expert on the gut. I'm not an expert on anxiety. I'm not an expert on mice. I'm going to assume that maybe they then take blood tests. But I don't know. I would have said then maybe they'll take blood tests and maybe certain neurotransmitters would be elevated or downregulated when someone is in an anxious state.
And you get that from your blood?
But do we know enough about that yet? Am I making it up? Is that soundbite culture that's told me that? Or is that actual... I don't know. I don't think we know enough.
Can you change neurotransmitters to your blood? I'm maybe showing my lack of knowledge on neurotransmitters, but I don't know if you can get them from your blood, can you?
And again, I don't know if this is true or not. There are companies out there that will do neurotransmitter and hormonal profiles based on your urine and your blood test. But again, I think that goes back to the old ketone strip argument as well, is things that are happening in the urine aren't necessarily happening pre-kidney. But again,
or past blood-brain barrier.
Or past blood-brain barrier. But again, that's way beyond my understanding of any of those things. So I know I nearly ordered one before. I went, well, this would be interesting to see. Because all I've done neurotransmitter-wise before is several of those personality tests. Is it
Braveman?
Braveman. So I got hooked on the idea of, well, if there's a biological thing that tells me, then maybe that's the thing to do. But I swear I then read something saying that's not necessarily the case.
Because I thought heart rate. But then, like, if I took somebody else's poo and put it in your ass, would your heart rate not go up?
Fuck me. What an image. The people in human
That's the thumbnail.
They did
That's April. Yeah, this is April on the calendar, by the way, guys. But like, so I just don't know. And the problem with my studies anyway is because they're much smaller than us. Like, he did this with the Diet Coke thing. Like, yes, but let's zoom out a bit here. Let's put some common sense with this.
Who's funding this research, by the way? If this is coming from my tax money, I want it back. Because that's ridiculous.
There's a mouse with lipstick on and a bandage over his backside.
I'd rather fund aggressive gain of function research and put COVID-20 out there than subject a mouse to having another mouse's shit fucked in it. That just seems barbaric. What's the end goal there?
So, like, going into like off the studies of it and just like taking the jokes aside, there is a link between the gut and the brain, right? The vagus nerve being obviously the primary example of this. What impact do you think it really has?
In terms of
depression, anxiety?
Well, if these studies are showing correctly that most of our serotonin is formed in the gut as well, which again, the sound bites are a bit of a misnomer. If serotonin is formed in the gut, it doesn't mean necessarily our decision-making capabilities are coming from the gut, but maybe that serotonin is then transported. I don't know. Again, it goes a bit beyond my understanding.
But it could be chicken the egg, right? So I get it. I tend to agree with this. If our serotonin is produced in the gut, we have a link with the vagus nerve from the gut and the brain. There's a potential mechanism why someone would be more anxious if their gut health was poor. But how can we say what causes? We all say what causes bad gut health is food that doesn't agree with the gut. It is poor foods, nutrient deficiencies, etc., etc. Is that because the gut affects the brain, or is it that those nutrient deficiencies will pour our energy? Our energy will change the way we look. That will make us feel more negatively about ourselves, which will then, of course, depression and anxiety. What caused what?
Well, there you go. Again, it's exactly that. The chicken and the egg. And to harp back for
chicken and the mouse shit.
Chicken and the mouse shit, isn't it? It's the chicken and the anxious mouse. But to harp back for 1 second, this girl that I was arguing with on TikTok. Well, yeah, one of the comments, this bird was saying, well, my diet's meant to be 1,200 calories and my hormones are fucked and whatever. And I looked at, because this is what I do, right? This is what I do. There's still that part of me that enjoys a little bit of arguing on the internet and wants to have the backup plan ready for when things get aggressive, which I don't use anymore. I just go, see you later. I don't do it anymore. But still part of me wants to go, let's just have a look at this person. And this girl was arguing, I'm a PT, I'm a nutritionist, so I know my stuff, and I could come back with, the publications my results are featured in, but I don't. The result I got from clicking on a profile and looking at this PT/nutritionist who is perimenopausal as well, so of course your hormones are going to be fucked. In which case, if you're perimenopausal, why are you worrying about fucking fat loss? That's not your priority at the moment. And all I could see was a stereotypical skinny fat, high body fat tricep and thigh female, which means her decisions up to that point in her life have created that physique, not her hormones. You can't blame your hormones when you're perimenopausal for your physique if your physique was shit before you even hit menopausal age, which means what your actions, your decisions, your behaviors, and the food you've been eating have created this hormonal fucking nightmare, which means your menopause is going to be a little bit more of a rougher fucking ride. But again, if you are, for those who are of menopausal age, change your priorities. Change your priorities now. And there's more than enough research and females out there showing you that post-menopausal, you can get in the physique of your fucking life. If you're premenopausal, my God, we've got some work to do, yeah? But if you're going through it, change your priorities right the fuck away. Be the same as trying to lose weight when you're pregnant, you know, which I know some women fucking do.
I think to bring this podcast full circle, we mentioned at the start of something where you went down a wormhole, going down a wormhole with this strange sort of like thinking from your arse sacrum stuff, cult. And we've now gone on to the diet realm. And I think what people tend to do is go down this wormhole, and they're so far down it that they stop to pull themselves back and think, right, where does this fit into the grand scheme of things? Where does this fit into the bigger picture? People don't do that. They go down one avenue. And I think when we look at this, that people will go, to clarify, if anyone has listened to this and is triggered by the fact that we've sound like we're boo-hooing hormones, which, by the way, go back and listen to it again. You're too far down the wormhole because we have said how hormones are important, but they're just a part of the calorie equation. But I think to clarify, from two people that have gotten thousands of client results, have, in my case, coached men like trainers and watched data from all of their clients as well as my clients, has run education for gyms across Asia in different gyms, has seen all the results of their clients. You ran the PT qualification. Of course, they didn't have data yet, but you obviously were backing the stuff off research. And I'm not saying that we are the big or I am. Well, I think a lot of this podcast is us talking about where we're not sure, where we want to learn more, where we're idiots, right? But if there's one thing I've learned, if your weight loss stalls immediately, it is not time for an adjustment in calories. It is not calories not working. It is not hormones. I'm going to leave this with another analogy. Imagine a race car going round a track, and imagine the petrol in that tank that keeps it moving is your hormones. If you're going around the track, if your petrol's about to run out, it doesn't just immediately just disappear and evaporate and the car comes to a screeching halt. It'll gradually slow down as you go around the track, and it will splutter out signs and symptoms that you're starting to not get as much from this Formula One race car as you were before. So that's when you would maybe veer off into the pits, get a refuel, get a tune-up, and then off you go again to the races. You don't all of a sudden screech to a halt and go, what? I'm out of petrol? Where did that happen? Like your thyroid will gradually slow down, and it would start showing you problems above and beyond your weight loss stalling. If you have an immediate weight loss, it isn't that. It could be tracking error. It could be menopausal. It could be time of the month. It could be stress. It could be gut issues. It could be bloating. But it will not be a stall in fat loss. If something has gradually come down to a halt, it's either now you need to adjust your calories or your activity, or there may be an issue. And if there is an issue, that's something that one will be shown in other symptoms. Like if you said to me, my weight loss, my muscle mass has stalled, it's my testosterone, I will ask you, what's your libido like? What's your energy like? You know, those are the things I'd ask. If we don't have more than one of those symptoms, that ain't the problem. And I just want to clarify, if anyone here is listening to this and is confused, as Stephen Bartlett said, about this, just listen to that sentence back a few times, and you can put the data you get about your body or your clients' bodies into perspective and realize that the actual answer is simple. The science is complex and a wormhole, but 90% of people in there's outliers, but 90% of people that you're dealing with, and you probably aren't the 10%.
So keyword there is perspective, and you don't get perspective from sound bites. You've got to go deeper. Got to go so much deeper. So yeah, if you are the type of person that listens to Stephen Bartlett, or maybe you didn't even listen to the podcast, maybe just listen to the TikTok clip or the reel, and you're trying to form a decision from that, you can't. There's no sound bite in the world, and this is the problem I have with motivational quotes as well. Is they get taken out of context as well. Context and perspective is the bigger thing there.
You said there you don't get context through sound bites. Was that the phrase you used?
Pretty much, yeah. Something
Yeah.
like that. That's a sound bite, isn't it?
So, still there. Oh yeah, you're back. So, I said you don't get perception of sound bites. So when you're looking, there's another great phrase that was said by the incredible Dr. Robert Sapolsky. Robert Sapolsky, you know Sapolsky, right?
Mm.
He wrote the great book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I think it was him that actually said this phrase in this. Took great so much stress, but it could be somebody else. When you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. And what people should understand is that, like, never go out your, like, in a business. If you're a coach, right, you're told not to go out your scope of practice. Mm. Don't try and fix someone's like meniscus tear, right? Work with what you've got, right? Don't try and go rehabby too much. Work with the realm you've got. Work with what doesn't give them pain. Get strong. When it comes to nutrition, however, if you only have a working knowledge, don't try and solve your thyroid output. Go to experts in those fields if you need to. If I know an all right amount about this, I would still see an endocrinologist if I had a problem.
Yeah.
And don't try and self-diagnose. If you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. It's probably not special. It's probably simple. Think of the obvious thing first. Don't think, my weight loss is stalled, it must be thyroid. No, my weight loss is stalled, my portion sizes have probably increased without me knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's bring it back. It is as simple as that. It's a complex subject. It doesn't have to be complicated. And as always, our industry and our culture just loves to complicate it because that's what we do.
There's a great example of this as well, right? Biosig made things complicated for any coach old enough, like as old as us. Remember Charles Pollock in Biosig, where every site was like, this was your knee. If you have a fat knee, your growth hormone's out of whack. Because I had so many clients go, I want to get my knees leaner. And or your umbilical. And I'm not saying some of these things don't have merit. I have done thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of caliper tests. And do you know what? Some of this stuff is, I think, bang on the money. There's something in this.
Yeah.
But before you sit there and go, I need calcium diglucarate to get my hamstrings down and dim and resveratrol, right? How about you think, if you put on a calorie deficit, while these hormones may have an impact on hormone balancing cells, if you put someone in a calorie deficit for long enough, all of these things sort themselves out. So while you could go 7 or 8 layers deeper, the first layer deeper often solves 6 or 7 of the layers. So do the simple thing first and then delve deeper when necessary. Don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, because it could be the issue. Calorie deficit will solve most things. If I have a thyroid issue, eat more first before thinking about like things like iodine and zinc supplementation.
Yeah.
So as you might drop the moment, for people who want to find, we're going to plug your Fat Loss Fast Lane today because this is the relevant one for this. So we want to hear you talk about calories. Tell us about Fat Loss Fast Lane.
So if you come to the Fat Loss Fast Lane, which you'll find me on 99% of social media platforms, except for LinkedIn, then that's what we spoke about today. Like, I'm quite open. I get my clients to calorie count. It's rare that I work with ones that don't. I just try and go the extra mile to help those that don't know how to be able to. But I also am big on building the habits, behaviors, and the decision-making capabilities, not through human design or any weird cultist graphs, but through training probably thousands of clients through these exact things. So and that's where I talk less about UFOs and weird cults and things like that. So that's where you can get some actual help with your diet and your physique.
And for people who want to hear you talk about cults and UFOs and aliens, your main page doesn't allow collaboration anymore, so it's going to be harder for people to find you. So Rob double B Core.
I think I'm being shadow banned by the Matrix. I don't know what's happening there, because I made my account private and then I made it unprivate again. And since making it unprivate, it's not accepting collabs. It's weird. I don't think.
So that's 2 of your lives. They're going to Epstein you next, right?
So I think that's 2 of my. So it's between me and Tate who's going to be knocked off first.
I mean what sexually?
I reckon he'll get first because he's bigger and I'm smaller. And one of the advantages of being 5'9" is you can fit through most gaps, and that's where Tate's going to go. So.
Mate, and on that note, Right, on an amazing tangent. We'll leave it there. Mate, thank you as ever. Always been really good. We'll catch you next week.
Cool then.
Guys, thank you very much for watching the podcast. If you're like me and like to binge watch podcast episodes, click here for our most recent episode. And if you enjoy the show and want to be updated when new videos come live, click here to subscribe to the channel.